Today on the Crit House, we talk to Delilah Montoya, an artist whose artwork explores the cultural tapestry of the American Southwest. Montoya's art draws on her Chicana heritage using photography, mixed media, printmaking, and sculptural elements to articulate the Chicana experience in the United States. Montoya's work is celebrated internationally and is held in prestigious collections, including the Smithsonian, the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, and the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston. She's taught at the University of New Mexico, Cal State, and the University of Houston. And today, on the Crit House, Delilah Montoya talks about her myFIVE images from Bruce Davidson, Graciela Iturbide, Agustín Casasola, Yolanda Lopez, and Luis Bernal. You're located in New Mexico, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm over here in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Lovely.
I actually taught for a while in Houston, Texas. So that's probably why you kind of thought I was probably still there, but no, I retired. So just kind of working on my own work, and it's good. I like it. Yeah,
well,
retirement's fun.
Well, so tell us a little bit about who you are as a photographer. What's your history and what kind of work do you do? And when you tell people what kind of photographer you are, what do you say?
Well, usually, actually, I call myself a Chicana photographer. That was something that I was really clear about, that that's what I wanted to do. And really it was about creating an aesthetic. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to kind of like just mold myself around the issues of my community, and how to represent um, some of the issues that just kind of manifested within the community itself. So that what I wanted to do was be able to kind of like speak to who we are and how we see ourselves. What I do is I push back on documentary photography. So what I'm doing is I'm bringing it in, but I'm also critiquing it, right? So formulated it in such a way where I feel like it's more truthful, because so much of the time the representation of my own community has always been kind of slanted towards the ideas of documentary photography, and there's many things within the documentary theme that and the way in which they proceeded, and the way in which documentary photography actually came together, that I question its veracity.
Interesting. So we gave you this assignment to come up with 5 images or artists that have influenced your creative development. What was your thought process in making that decision about what those 5 images would be?
I did that this morning. Like, let me think about this. I don't know. I need to think about this. I haven't thought about this. And, then I began to think about the images that really moved me, and kind of inspired me to kind of like rethink or think about things, and question, and become influenced or inspired, right? And so then, those images started coming in really pretty fast for me. And I guess right at the beginning of that is Casasola.
Well, let's take a look.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a particular image that I found to be really, when I was a teenager, and I was in Omaha, Nebraska, and there was a thing called the Chicana Awareness Center that I started going to, because like Chicago, Omaha had a large Latino population that was working within the packing house industry. Right. So that's why we had, like, the Chicano Awareness Center was out there. And there was this image of this woman holding on to a train as it's moving. And the look on her face was one that I knew. I understood that look of not knowing, of being anxious, of trying to just hold on to the sides of that train, you know? kind of, yeah, and you know, I kind of read into the image. I remember reading into that image and understanding her position and understanding her courage, um, of kind of going forth into the unknown, right? And so for me, that became an idea that stuck with me. And later on, when I was in Chicago at had an opening of one of my shows. This man came up to me and we started talking, and he told me, you know, I have Casasola prints, and I'm like, really? It's great. And he told me, I'd like to make a trade with you, and I actually got that image.
Wow.
I traded for that image, so I have it. It's in my collection. And it still inspires me every day. You know, when I look at it, it's still very inspirational for me.
Let's move to your
Hmm.
second image from Bruce Davidson, this brilliant shot.
You know, when I was in photography, you know, going to a community college in Omaha, was Metro Technical Community College. One of the professors showed us this book, and it had, I think, I don't know if it had just come out or it was in his collection or whatever, but the front cover was this image, and it's East 100th Street, by Bruce Davison, and he photographed in Spanish Harlem. And one of the things that I found out about him was that he was actually a fashion photographer, but I
Yeah.
don't know, I might be wrong about that, but somehow that kind of was in the back of my mind. And he was using a large format camera.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. He was using a large format camera. And I was like, whoa, you know, so here's this guy with a large format camera. He's going out there and he's doing these street photography. But then one of the things that I began to think about, I mean, you know, like he was along the line of Cartier-Bresson. Cartier-Bresson and him, they knew each other,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm sure they had conversation. And, you know, documentary photography came out of surrealism. And Cartier-Bresson is very clear about that. He's very clear that, you know, there was a point in time for surrealism where it was associated with communism. And
Hmm.
so therefore Cartier-Bresson dropped that whole discussion as being, you know, as being part of the communist kind of influence, meaning kind of like social, the worker,
Yeah.
that sort of thing, right? Because they were getting blacklisted, right? And so he turned it into more or less the decisive moment. Yeah.
Your third image, tell us about this.
Okay, so this image is by Graciela Iturbide, and when I first saw this image, and I think that was probably in the I want to say 85, somewhere around there. Although this image was um, done in 79. Uh,
Hmm.
I really, one, I really love the composition on it. I like the way the lights and the darks were working. I love the look of the landscape. I love that desert look. But one thing that really grabbed me was that boombox.
That boom marks it's
I mean, it was like it was just, you know, such a moment, right?
yeah.
It's a moment of saying like who we are. Yes, there is the traditionalism. Yes, there is this look, but we're also influenced by, you know, what's around us, right? We're contemporary current people. And the thing is, Graciela was, you know, highly influenced by Manuel Alvarez Bravo and Bravo's works. And Bravo himself was a surrealist.
Hmm.
You know, he comes right out, and you know, you're looking at magical surrealism coming out of, you know, Latin America, of course.
Well, let's go on to your first color image from Luis Bernal.
Yeah, when I first saw this image, I was was in Omaha, actually, at that 2-year community college. And the librarian there who knew that I was, Latina, handed me this kind of huge, like I don't know, book, and it wasn't even a book. It was more like a huge pamphlet, and this image was on it, and it was of Luis Bernal's work, and it was in color, and I was just like floored. I'm like, who is this, and what is he doing? And I remember just kind of like flipping through all the images really, really fast, and realizing that he was making work that really spoke about who we were and where we came from. And there wasn't necessarily that, like within Bruce Davison's work, there wasn't that distance, there wasn't that sense of the biases for me in what he was doing. And then later on, I was introduced to Luis Jimenez, and we got to talking, and he was telling me that he knew Luis Bernal, and I was like, really? I love his work. He did amazing work. And so I learned that he actually had a painter's background.
Wow.
And that I began to understand why his work was so compositionally well defined, right? So you're looking at this image where you have a foreground and you have this background, right? And then the palette is beautiful. So I mean, like this piece was done in 78, so you know that it was done with film. And he's really coordinating his colors really well, and we don't necessarily see that in early color photography. If you take a look at that palette is pretty spectacular. When I saw this, it was just, for me, it was beautiful. And he has a couple of other images, and so here we see an image that has kind of like more or less a street photography feel,
Yeah.
but is it street photography?
Well, thank you for sharing this image and for the discussion of it. We'll wrap up with your final, this triptych from Yolanda Lopez.
Yeah.
Tell us about this one and why this is here. Obviously not photography, but
No, it's obviously, well, but the thing is that she created a backdrop, and you'll see some of like these kind of like early images that she did with herself with the backdrop, and the backdrop is that. It's
oh,
like
interesting. Okay.
the rayas, right? And you'll see these images of her like just kind of sitting in front of her rayas, and she was using though that to for inspiration for this is called the Guadalupes, and it was done in 78. Um, and it's an early Chicano movement image. And it's one where the women of the Chicano movement are expressing their femininity, the feminists as a feminist. Early Chicano movement was very kind of male dominated. And Yolanda was one of the first to just kind of break out from that and really, put the woman up front. And in this piece, what we're seeing, it was very controversial at the time that she did it. She took the Guadalupe away from as this kind of image of like a religious relic, right? And what she did was she put in the working class. Yolanda is the one who's in the middle. And what she's done is she's taken the Guadalupe cape off and she's running.
Okay.
Right. And the Guadalupe was used in the Mexican Revolution. They carried the Guadalupe. Cesar Chavez carried the Guadalupe. The Guadalupe is in all of the churches. She is the first instance of Christianity in the New World. And so when I saw that image, and one of the things that she became a mentor for me.
Okay.
And one of the things that she inspired me to think about, and this is a real thinking image, right? That's what I really love about it. It makes us think. is that what she was expressing was her own visual creative freedom, the freedom to create what you feel is necessary to create.
Well, it certainly
Which
made me think in ways that I never would have. And first of all, I appreciate all of the imagery that you have shown and the way that you have talked about all of the images, because your your view is different than we have had represented on this program previously. So I want to thank you for um, introducing me to several artists that I was not familiar with, but also talking about why they were important to you. Very
and
informative,
if,
I think. I've learned.
yeah, and if you take a look at it, I mean, it's all about the working class, right? And Mexicans are the working class.
Yeah.
We're not criminals by any stretch. We're not criminals. All
No, I
right.
know. I'm
We
just
come to work. That's what
I,
we
I
do. We work.
I hope
We
you aren't
have
getting
built
that
this
from.
country.
I
We
hope you
built
aren't
the
getting. I know,
country.
I know. And then we're at this place right now in history on, we're recording this on November 15th when things are going in just a different place. So that's why I think this having you have this conversation with us is important right now. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Well, thank you for thinking about bringing the work on, and I just hope that the rest of the country understands we're not criminals,
I think a good
and
portion.
we've been here. We've been here for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
We've been here.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you.
Delilah Montoya, thank you for the art that you have provided to us and for this conversation as well. It's greatly appreciated.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
And
All
thank you
right.
all for watching The Crit House.